Original post: I keep 3 million people's lights on, and my family acts like I don't exist. I'm not sure why I'm posting this here. Maybe because strangers on the internet feel safer than the family who've made me feel like a ghost my entire life. Maybe because I just need someone, anyone, to acknowledge that I exist and that what I do matters. I'm a nuclear power plant technician. I'm 28 years old, and for the last 6 years, I've worked at one of the largest nuclear facilities in the Midwest. Every single day, I help maintain the systems that provide clean, safe energy to over 3 million people. When you flip a light switch, charge your phone, or run your dishwasher, there's a chance the electricity flowing through your home passed through equipment I personally inspected, calibrated, and certified as safe. I've worked through holidays. I've missed birthdays, weddings, and funerals because reactor maintenance doesn't wait for convenient timing. I've stood in containment buildings at 2 a.m. running safety checks while everyone else was sleeping peacefully, never knowing how close they came to problems that my team caught and fixed before anyone ever noticed. I'm not looking for praise. That's not why I do this job. I do it because it matters. Because clean energy matters. Because keeping people safe matters. But here's the thing that's been eating me alive lately. My own family treats me like I'm completely invisible. My sister, Claire, is 30. She's a motivational speaker. According to my parents, she's the most remarkable human being who has ever walked the earth. She inspires everyone she meets. She changes lives. She has a gift for connecting with people. What does Claire actually do? She charges corporations $5,000 to $10,000 to stand on a stage for 45 minutes and tell people to embrace their authentic selves and manifest their potential. She has a podcast with about 12,000 subscribers. She's written 0 books but constantly talks about the book she's working on. She posts Instagram photos of herself in business casual outfits with captions about showing up for yourself. My parents have a shrine to Claire in their living room. Framed photos from her speaking events. A poster from a TEDx talk she gave at a community college 3 years ago. Articles printed out from local newspapers about their inspirational daughter. You know what they have of me? One photo from my college graduation, tucked behind a plant on a side table. That's it. Last Thanksgiving, I made the mistake of trying to talk about my work. I just completed a certification that took me 2 years of additional training. I was genuinely proud of myself. I started explaining what it meant, how it qualified me to oversee critical safety systems, and my mother literally interrupted me mid-sentence to ask Claire about her upcoming speaking engagement in Phoenix. My father looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "That's nice, son," he said, then turned back to Claire. "That's nice, son. 2 years of work. Hundreds of hours of study. A certification that maybe 300 people in the entire country have. That's nice, son." I stopped going to family dinners after that. What was the point? I'd sit there for 3 hours listening to everyone fawn over Claire while I ate my mashed potatoes in silence. No one ever asked about my life. No one ever asked if I was seeing anyone, if I was happy, if I needed anything. I was furniture. Less than furniture. At least furniture gets dusted occasionally. The worst part is, I used to idolize Claire when we were kids. She was my big sister. She was confident and charming and everyone loved her. I thought if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, maybe I'd earn some of that attention too. I worked my way through engineering school with scholarships and part-time jobs while Claire dropped out of college after 2 semesters because it wasn't aligned with her purpose. My parents paid off her credit card debt. They helped her rent her first apartment. They funded her speaker training program that cost $15,000. When I graduated with honors and got my first job at the plant, my dad said, "Well, at least you'll have stable income." That was it. No party. No celebration. Just acknowledgement that I wouldn't be a financial burden. I bought my own house 2 years ago. A nice 3-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood about 40 minutes from the plant. I paid my own down payment. I handle my own mortgage. No one in my family has ever visited. But Claire just got evicted from her apartment in the city because she's between major contracts and needs a quiet retreat to finally write her book. Guess where she's decided to retreat to? 3 days ago, she showed up at my door with 2 suitcases, announcing that she'd be staying for a few weeks, maybe a month, to focus on her writing. She didn't ask. She informed me. I was so stunned I just stood there while she walked past me into my house, looked around, and immediately started critiquing my furniture choices. "We'll need to move some things around," she said. "I need a space that inspires creativity. This is my house. I bought it with my money. I've never asked anyone for anything. But of course, when I called my parents to ask what was going on, my mother's response was, "Oh, isn't it wonderful that you can help your sister? She's going through such a difficult time. Her speaking career is really about to take off, but she needs support right now. This is what family does. This is what family does." Where was family when I was working double shifts to pay for textbooks? Where was family when I spent Christmas alone because I had to cover emergency maintenance? Where was family when I was in the hospital for 2 days with appendicitis and no one even called? I don't know what to do. Claire has been here for 3 days, and she's already rearranged my living room, complained about my grocery choices, and invited 2 of her friends over for a creative brainstorming session without asking me. She treats my house like it's a hotel she's generously tolerating. She treats me like I'm the staff. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, she hasn't asked me a single question about my life. Not one. She's been sleeping in my guest room, eating my food, using my Wi-Fi, and she hasn't even asked what I do for a living. I maintain nuclear reactors. I keep millions of people safe. And my own sister doesn't even know what my job is. I'm so tired of being invisible. Edit. Some people are asking why I let her in. Honestly, I was conditioned to. My whole life, I've been the one who accommodates, who doesn't cause problems, who just goes along with whatever Claire needs. It's hard to unlearn 3 decades of programming in a single moment. But I'm starting to realize I need to do something. Update 1. 2 weeks later, I changed the locks. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. I read every single comment, some of them multiple times. Many of you told me I needed to establish boundaries. Some of you were blunter. Kick her out. Others shared similar stories about being the invisible sibling, and knowing I wasn't alone helped more than I can express. Here's what happened over the past 2 weeks. Claire's few weeks stay quickly became indefinite. She took over my guest room completely, spreading her belongings into the hallway, the bathroom, and somehow into my kitchen cabinets. She rearranged my living room twice because the energy wasn't flowing right. She complained constantly about the neighborhood being too quiet, then complained when my neighbor mowed his lawn because it disrupted her creative process. She never offered to pay for groceries, utilities, or anything else. When I came home from a particularly exhausting 12-hour shift, she asked me to pick up specific organic groceries on my way because she was in the middle of a breakthrough chapter. She wasn't writing. I never once saw her actually writing. She spent her days doing yoga in my living room, talking on the phone with her friends, and posting Instagram stories about her writer's retreat. The breaking point came last Thursday. I came home to find she'd had a small gathering. A creative salon, she called it. 8 people I'd never met were in my house, drinking my wine, eating catered food that I would later learn she put on my credit card she found in my desk, and discussing Claire's creative vision. My house. My wine. My credit card. I didn't make a scene. I'm not built that way. But I pulled Claire aside and told her, quietly, that this wasn't acceptable. That she'd stolen from me. That she needed to leave. She laughed. Actually laughed. "Don't be so dramatic," she said. "I'll pay you back when my book advance comes in. Mom and Dad said you'd probably be difficult about this, but I told them you'd come around. You always do." Mom and Dad said I'd be difficult. Something shifted in me at that moment. Some final thread that had been holding together my entire identity as the accommodating brother just snapped. I waited until her friends left. I waited until she went to bed. And then I made a plan. The next morning, I called my supervisor and requested 3 days of leave. Personal emergency. They approved it without question because I've never once called in sick or asked for unscheduled time off in 6 years. I spent those 3 days strategically. Day 1, I consulted with a lawyer. I wanted to understand my rights as a homeowner. I wanted to know exactly what I could and couldn't do legally. Turns out, in my state, she hadn't established legal residency yet since she'd been there less than 30 days and wasn't on any lease or document. I could change my locks. I could remove her belongings. I was within my rights. Day 2, I hired a locksmith. I had every external lock in my house replaced. I had the garage code changed. I also, on the advice of several commenters here, installed a comprehensive security camera system. 8 cameras total, covering every entrance and the driveway. All recording to a cloud server that she couldn't access or tamper with. Day 3, while Claire was out at a networking brunch in the city, I packed all of her belongings neatly into her suitcases and 2 additional boxes. I placed them on my front porch. I changed all the locks. I tested every camera. Then I texted her, "Your belongings are on the porch. I've changed the locks. This living arrangement is over. Please collect your things by 5 p.m. The response was immediate and explosive. My phone blew up with calls from Claire, then from my mother, then from my father, then from Claire again. I didn't answer. I let them go to voicemail. The voicemails ranged from confused to angry to threatening to sobbing. My mother's final voicemail was the most telling. How could you do this to your sister? After everything this family has done for you. She needed you, and you've abandoned her. I don't even know who you are anymore. After everything this family has done for me. I genuinely couldn't think of a single thing. Claire collected her belongings that evening. I watched through my new security cameras as she threw her suitcases into her car, screamed at my house, and drove away. I felt nothing but relief. But that wasn't the end. 3 nights later, at 3:17 a.m., my security system alert woke me up. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone and watched, in high-definition night vision, as Claire tried to break into my house. She was at my back door with what looked like a credit card, attempting to jimmy the lock. When that didn't work, she tried a window. When that failed, she picked up a decorative rock from my garden and appeared to be weighing whether to throw it through the glass. I called the police. By the time they arrived, Claire was still there, now trying to pry open my garage side door with some kind of tool from her car. The officers found her with a screwdriver in hand. I showed them the security footage. All of it. Crystal clear, time-stamped, and indisputable. Claire was arrested for attempted breaking and entering. My mother called me a monster. My father said I'd destroyed the family. Neither of them asked why their daughter was trying to break into my house at 3 a.m. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care what they thought. I had evidence. I had boundaries. I had a house that was finally mine again. I'm pressing charges. Update 2. 2 months later, the walls come down. I've been debating whether to post another update. Part of me wanted to just move on with my life and forget this whole situation. But so many of you reached out asking what happened, and honestly, writing this out helps me process everything. 2 months have passed since Claire's arrest, and her world has completely fallen apart. Not because of anything I did beyond pressing charges for what she actually did, but because consequences, it turns out, have a way of finding people who've never faced them before. After her arrest, Claire made bail quickly. My parents paid it, of course. They still weren't speaking to me, which was honestly a relief. But Claire, perhaps foolishly, couldn't stay quiet about what happened. She posted about it on Instagram. She wrote about being betrayed by family and persecuted for seeking creative sanctuary. She painted herself as the victim, me as the villain. She called my house a toxic environment that she'd been forced to flee. She mentioned nothing about the attempted break-in, the stolen credit card charges, or the fact that she'd shown up uninvited and essentially tried to move in permanently. Her followers, her corporate clients, her speaking agency, they all saw these posts. And some of them started asking questions. One of her followers turned out to be a journalist for a regional business magazine. The journalist did some digging. Court records are public. Police reports can be obtained. Security camera footage, when voluntarily provided to support a case, becomes part of the record. The story that emerged was not flattering to Claire. Her speaking agency dropped her within a week of the story being published. Their statement was corporate and bland. We are no longer representing Claire in a professional capacity and wish her well in her future endeavors. Translation: You're a liability we can't afford. Her corporate clients started canceling. One by one, I heard through the grapevine that speaking engagements were being postponed indefinitely or restructured with different presenters. No one wanted their company associated with someone facing criminal charges for attempted burglary. But here's where things got worse for Claire. During the investigation into her attempted break-in, the police discovered something interesting about the credit card charges she'd made at my house. The catered food for her salon cost over $800. The wine she'd served was from my collection, but she'd also ordered additional alcohol on my card totaling another $300. And when they looked more closely at her financial records, which became relevant because she claimed she couldn't afford a private attorney, they found a pattern. Claire had been doing this to other people. A former roommate came forward. Then a friend who'd let Claire stay, temporarily, for 6 months. Then an ex-boyfriend. The stories were remarkably similar. Claire would move in under the guise of friendship or family, gradually take over, run up expenses, and then either leave chaos in her wake or have to be forcibly removed. In 2 cases, there were unreported instances of credit card fraud and theft. The roommate had lost over $2,000. The friend had her identity used to open a store credit card. When these other victims learned that someone was finally pressing charges against Claire, they contacted the prosecutor. Suddenly, My case wasn't just attempted breaking and entering. It was part of a pattern. It demonstrated intent and character. New charges were filed: credit card fraud, identity theft, and theft. 3 separate victims, 3 separate incidents, now all consolidated. Claire's facing serious time if convicted. Her public defender, as I understand it, is trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor is pushing for actual consequences given the pattern of behavior. Meanwhile, my life has been moving forward. I threw myself into my work after the arrest. Not to escape, but because I finally had the mental energy to focus completely without family drama draining me. I applied for a senior position that had opened up, something I'd been too anxious to pursue before because I always felt like I didn't deserve advancement. I got it. Last week, I was promoted to senior safety engineer. It's a significant jump in responsibility and pay. I'll be overseeing critical safety systems for the entire facility. When I received the news, my supervisor said something that made me pause. "We've been watching you for years, waiting for you to realize you were ready for this. You've always been capable. You just needed to believe it." I've always been capable. I just needed to believe it. I started seeing a therapist about a month ago. Not because I'm in crisis, but because I realized that 28 years of being invisible had left marks I couldn't see. We've been talking about family dynamics, about how being the overlooked child shapes your sense of self-worth, about why I let Claire walk all over me in the first place. The answer, my therapist says, is simple. I'd been trained since birth to believe I didn't matter. My parents' constant focus on Claire, their dismissal of my achievements, their expectation that I'd always accommodate, it all added up to a core belief that my needs were secondary. That my boundaries didn't deserve to exist. Breaking that pattern feels like learning to walk again. Some days I fall down, but I keep getting back up. My parents still haven't reached out. I've seen their posts on social media, rallying support for Claire, painting me as the cause of her downfall. Part of me expected it to hurt more than it does. But honestly, I feel sorry for them. They created this situation by never teaching Claire that actions have consequences. They enabled her for 30 years, and now they're watching their golden child face the reality they protected her from. I don't hate them. I don't hate Claire. I just don't have room for them in my life anymore. I maintain reactors that power millions of homes. I keep people safe every single day. And I'm finally starting to believe that matters, regardless of whether my family ever acknowledges it. Update 3. 4 months later, final update. This will be my last post about this situation. It's been 4 months since Claire's arrest, and I finally feel like I have closure enough to move on. Claire accepted a plea deal 3 weeks ago. The charges were serious: multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and attempted breaking and entering. Given the pattern of behavior and multiple victims, the prosecutor pushed for significant consequences. In the end, Claire pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for no jail time, but the conditions were substantial. 3 years of supervised probation. Full restitution to all victims, including myself, which totals nearly $8,000 she'll be paying off for years. 500 hours of community service. And mandatory completion of a financial crimes rehabilitation program, which includes therapy. The conviction is on her record. Any future employer who runs a background check will see it. Her speaking career is over. Not suspended, not on hiatus, over. I looked up her website last month out of curiosity, and it's gone. Her social media accounts are either deleted or set to private. The woman who spent years standing on stages telling people to manifest their potential and embrace their authentic selves had never actually done either of those things herself. As for me, the senior position has been everything I hoped for and more. I'm leading a team now, overseeing safety protocols that protect not just the plant workers but the millions of people who depend on us. Last month, we successfully completed a comprehensive safety review that identified and corrected 3 potential issues before they could become problems. My supervisor told me I'd caught things that more experienced engineers had missed. I caught things that others missed. Maybe because I've spent my whole life watching from the sidelines. When you're invisible, you learn to notice details that others overlook. I've been promoted again, actually. Not in title this time, but in responsibility. I've been asked to join a regional safety committee that advises multiple facilities. It's a recognition of expertise that I never would have pursued before. The old me would have assumed I wasn't qualified, that someone else deserved it more. But here's the update that surprised me most. 3 weeks ago, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter in the mail. It was from Claire. I almost threw it away unopened. I stood at my mailbox with it in my hand for a full minute, weighing whether there was anything she could say that I wanted to hear. Eventually, curiosity won. The letter was 4 pages long, and I'm not going to share it all because some of it is too personal. But I'll share the parts that mattered. She started with an apology. A real one. Not, "I'm sorry you felt hurt," or "I'm sorry things turned out this way," but actual acknowledgement of specific harm she'd caused. She wrote, "I treated you like you didn't exist because I genuinely believed you didn't matter as much as me. That's not an excuse. It's the truth about the person I was." Mom and Dad's constant praise, their focus on everything I did, it warped my perception of reality. I thought I deserved everything. I thought the rules didn't apply to me. I thought my needs were always more important than anyone else's, especially yours, because that's what our parents taught me to believe. She continued, "The therapy I've been required to complete has forced me to examine why I treat people the way I do. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. Looking at yourself honestly when you don't like what you see is terrifying. But I'm doing it because I don't want to be this person anymore." She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't ask to be part of my life again. She just wanted me to know that she understood what she'd done, why it was wrong, and that she was genuinely working to change. The letter ended with this: "You deserved so much better from me, from our parents, from everyone. What you do matters. You keep people safe. You've always kept people safe, including me, and I repaid you by treating you like you were nothing. I hope someday I become someone worthy of asking for your forgiveness. I'm not there yet. But I'm trying." I sat with that letter for a long time. I'm not going to pretend everything is resolved. I haven't responded to Claire. I'm not sure I will. The damage done over 28 years can't be undone by one letter, no matter how sincere. And I've learned through therapy that I don't owe anyone reconciliation. Forgiveness, if I choose to give it, is for my benefit, not hers. But something in me did shift reading her words. My parents still haven't reached out. From what I've heard through distant relatives, they've doubled down on their narrative that I'm the villain who destroyed Claire's life. They're not capable of seeing their role in creating the situation. They may never be. And I've made peace with that. I've built a life that I'm proud of. I've established boundaries that protect my peace. I'm surrounded by colleagues who respect my work, a therapist who helps me understand my patterns, and a quiet home that belongs entirely to me. Last weekend, I hosted a small gathering at my house. Just some coworkers and a few friends I've made outside of work. We grilled food in my backyard, played cards at my dining table, and talked about normal things. Someone asked me about my job, and for the first time, I talked about it without minimizing or rushing through the explanation. I talked about what I do and why it matters. And people listened. They asked follow-up questions. They said they'd never thought about where their electricity came from. One of my coworkers raised his glass and said, "To the guy who keeps our lights on and never brags about it. I am not invisible. I never was. I just spent most of my life surrounded by people who chose not to see me. But I see me now. And that's enough." To everyone who followed this story, who offered advice, who shared their own experiences as the overlooked sibling, thank you. You helped me believe I had the right to exist, to take up space, to matter. I'll never forget that. This is my final update. I'm closing this chapter of my life and moving forward. The reactor is stable. The lights are on. And for the first time in my life, I am too. Edit. Since a lot of people are asking, no, I haven't decided whether I'll ever respond to Claire's letter. My therapist says there's no timeline on that decision. It can be next month or next year or never. What matters is that the choice is mine. And that's new territory for me, making choices based on what I want rather than what my family expects. I'm learning. Final edit. Someone asked if I'm happy. I had to think about it for a while. I don't know if happy is the right word. But I'm peaceful. I'm stable. I'm building something that's mine. And I wake up every morning knowing that the work I do keeps millions of people safe, even if most of them will never know my name. Maybe that's better than happiness. Maybe that's purpose. Thank you all. Truly.